Welcome to What's Happening. I'm your host, Paula Hersey, and today we have really two phenomenal guests with us. I loved their event because it's what's so funny about aging and being mortal. So with me today is Amanda Murphy. Nice to see you.
Thank you.
And Kathleen Budreski. You guys went to each other's workshops, then went out to lunch and decided you had to do a workshop together. And I love the title, What's So Funny About Aging and Being Mortal? So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourselves and we'll get started with what the event's all about.
Okay, thank you. Well, we're both nurses and we both work with the elderly, and we recognize that we ourselves are getting older, and we're interested in dialogue and conversation with people about how we can all grow older with grace and with gratitude. And we feel that at this time in our lives, it's important to really delve into the topic and the subject, and we want to share it with other people.
That's great.
Yeah.
How about you, Amanda? A little bit about yourself and kind of, how this workshop came about.
Okay, so I'm a registered nurse as well. I've been a nurse for 40 years. I'm on the holistic side of things. So in other words, I want to look at the bigger picture and what's involved with health and wellness. And one of the things that I use a lot of is humor. So I developed the class, What's So Funny About Aging, before we decided to meld with what Kathy does. And it's a look at the funny parts about aging. I turned 65 and I just couldn't believe that happened to me. And I remember getting the Medicare card and I thought, Medicare card? What on earth am I going to do with that? So I blew it up and I put it on a big poster on a stand in my living room and threw a party with a guitarist, vocalist, and just made fun out of it. And I just think that was the start of my deciding that this was going to be a fun ride. It was not going to be a downer for me. It was going to be a fun ride. And so anyway, then I went to one of Kathy's workshops on what if, and it was describing preparation for when we do pass on and being prepared for that. And she's very well versed in that topic and in a lot of the spirituality of aging, which I like to think I do some of that myself. So the two things just kind of melded. And Being Mortal, you probably know, is a best-selling book right now, written by an Indian physician who talks about some really important end-of-life issues and being prepared for that. And so I just think it's a great class, and it's a great combination, and I love working with her.
I love this. So November 10th is when you're going to do this at the Cultural Center of Cape Cod, which is just a fantastic venue to do anything at. Right. 2:30 to 5, so we'll, kind of get you in the afternoon kind of thing, right? Mm-hmm. Tell me a little bit about kind of the myths of aging and ageism. I have a husband who's 65. I'm in my 50s, so, I'm kind of curious. We don't think of ourselves as old. We just don't.
Neither do I.
Exactly. So where are these myths coming from that when you turn a certain age, you're old?
Well, that's a very good question. There are so many negative cultural stereotypes. And I mean, we go into a CVS or Hallmark store and look at the Maxine cards, which are a riot. Right. But like Amanda just said, she wanted to make fun when she turned 65, and some of these things make fun of aging. Right. So we want to kind of reframe it into something more positive. They talk about the twilight years, and we want to turn it into something more positive. The other term is the golden years, which is a positive term, but there's so many just negative stereotypes. So those myths, I think, have been with us for eons. And it's up to us as aging people to shift that and to look at the cup half full, not half empty.
Exactly. So for some, aging makes them unhappy. I mean, I was overjoyed to turn 50, literally. I threw myself a huge party at Cape Cod Beer. I got my friends to have a band, and you know, family came up from Florida, and we just partied for the evening. But when you look at some folks that are turning, you know, those significant ages, they're unhappy about that. Is your workshop going to maybe reframe how they're going to look at aging?
I hope so. That unhappiness is built in because of all the aging myths that we've all grown up around. Right. So the biggest perpetuators of the myths are the elderly themselves, who really believe that it's all downhill, it's a downhill slide. It doesn't need to be that. I think the fact that Kathy and I are both on the other side of that hill should be an inspiration that, you know, we're starting new things, and we're out on a mission here to help people understand that growing older can be a lot of fun, and there are a lot of upsides, and that a lot of things we're going to teach them is actually going to help them with aging and with their health. So it's all positive.
I think part of it is the health. People always believe that as they get older, their health really does degenerate, but it doesn't have to be that way. You know, you can do things no matter how old you are to make your health better every day. Is this something that's going to be part of this workshop?
Yes, yeah. The thing about aging and health, a lot of the health issues that arise as we get older are due to the fact that we haven't been taking very good care of ourselves for 70 or 80 years. And we can start doing that at any point. Old age is does not mean that you have to be sick. You have to have a disease. And if you do, there are steps that you can take to help yourself with that. Even the humor piece. There's a lot of research that shows having a sense of humor can help us with aging and help us when we're sick even.
Yeah, and other research that is being done now, which is significant, is people who have more gratitude for, excuse me, their blessings in life rather than thinking about their burdens it has been proven that they did research on a group of cardiac patients, and they had a certain control group writing down 5 things they were grateful for every day, and those that did that, it actually showed in their blood tests that they were healthier and had less symptoms. They did it also with transplant patients. These studies are documented, and they're good research. So we also want to point out the value of gratitude and as well as humor, and that is pretty interesting.
And even that spiritual belief, I would imagine, plays into that as well. As you know, I practice mindfulness and gratitude every day, but also that spiritual, regardless of what flavor of spirituality that you have, I think that, you know, having that peace in your life kind of gives you a little bit more of, you know, I can do this.
Absolutely. There is a wonderful book entitled From Aging to Saging, and it was written by a rabbi who died at the age of 89 2 years ago. But when he retired at age 80, he went on a search to interview the elders in Australia and New Zealand, some Aborigine and Maori elders. And he did a 40-day retreat over there. And when he came out, he wrote his book. And what he has shared in his book is, and his research, the value of generativity, of sharing. These wise elders are looked upon very respectfully in those cultures. And we could do more of that here in the United States. And the older population has an awful lot to teach the younger in mentoring and
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
So walk me through a little bit of how a workshop like this works. So, you know, you get there at 2:30. It's basically a 2.5 hour workshop. What happens? Do we all just sit in the room and laugh?
A little bit of that.
A little bit of that.
At 2:30, the workshop itself is 2 hours. At 2:30, we're going to have people come in and kind of mingle. We're going to have refreshments for them.
Okay.
Give them their handouts, and then I'll start the program with what's so funny about aging. And that will go on for close to an hour. And then we're going to do just a little movement exercise. We're not going to give it all away yet.
Okay.
And then Kathy will go on and you can discuss what you're going to talk about.
And I will talk about the new models of aging, some of the changing models, and also the spirituality piece. I'm a pastoral counselor as well as a nurse, and I was a chaplain at hospice, so I have a lot to share about that, and do a little experiential piece, and also get feedback from the audience and have some conversation too.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
So it's interactive.
Yes.
And some movement. I know that
Yes.
that's really important. Sitting in a chair for a couple of hours, you got to get up and move, right?
Absolutely.
So that's going to be Thursday, November 10th, 2:30 to 5 at the Cultural Center of Cape Cod in South Yarmouth. You can find information at your website?
Yes.
Okay, and that's wellness?
Wellnesspaths.com,
Okay.
or they can call me, Amanda, at 508-862-6395.
Okay, perfect. Anything else you kind of want to tell us about the day, or about this whole myth of, what's so funny about aging? I just love that title.
Well, one thing you brought up, which I thought was very important, was how your spirituality is more in mindfulness and meditation. And we do talk about that because right now the numbers of people going to mainstream churches has dwindled.
Sure.
However, the interest in some of this more spiritual stuff, it could be, besides meditation and mindfulness, it could be going for a walk in nature,
Yep.
Music, dance. So people are thirsty and hungry for finding the meaning of life and living more fully.
I think if I can just add, we're also going to be giving people resources to go home with. They'll have handouts, but we've made a list of some of the resources so they can get more information on aging as well as on dying. We're not going to do anything morbid here. It's going to be an upbeat, positive look at all of this, because you know what? Nobody gets away alive.
We all have an expiration date.
We all have an expiration.
And lastly, if we have time, I'll just mention, Amanda and I have been going to, recently, to death cafes, which, don't let that scare you, but in Hyannis at the Council of Aging in Barnstable, they have had some death cafes, and that's an opportunity for people to get together informally and talk about their feelings about death. It's not a grief support group, but it's an opportunity for people to come and just share, and we've found that helpful.
Isn't that interesting, huh?
Yeah.
Death cafes.
Yeah.
So it means you have coffee and it's informal, and
Sure.
you talk about anything
Sure.
around the
Well, there's
topic
always a
of
sense
death.
of fear, of the unknown, and that's really,
Yeah.
what that might be. Some
It's-
people have faith, so that unknown seems to be a little bit less scary in some ways. But that's kind of a neat concept, isn't it?
It
Death
helps to
cafes?
demystify a lot of
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
fears.
Yeah, just talking about it helps.
Excellent.
Just talking about it.
All right, so Thursday, November 10th, 2:30 to 5 p.m., Cultural Center of Cape Cod. You can find information at wellnesspaths.com, or you can call Amanda at 508-862-6395. I might send my husband. It's funny, having just picked up mindfulness and meditation. I've always walked in nature, but it changed my life about 2 years ago.
Wonderful.
And I have kind of pushed that off onto my better half there, and he sees the difference in me, so he
Wow.
tends to be a little bit more accepting to that. So we'll see. You might see him.
I think you ought to come to the program and
I think so too.
help to
Yeah.
share that information.
Thank you, Kathleen. Thank
You're
you,
welcome.
Amanda. I appreciate you coming to talk about your event.
It's
Thank you,
delightful.
Paula.
Thank you.
Alrighty.
Okay.
I'm Paula Hersey, and this is What's Happening.